when you stick three opinionated blokes in a room and put World of Warcraft in front of them.
A completely unchained view from each of them that clash in spectacular fashion, much like the best raids of all time. Classic.
There's going to be someone who's always right and someone who's always wrong, like Dunkirk is, as we know the latest raids are much better.
So, with that in mind, it's time to take a look at the latest Warcraft news and speculation. But be careful what you wish for, because
You think you do,
but you don't. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is the Almighty Farseer, and I am joined by the one and only Kexman. What are you laughing at now?
There was a lot of clicks then. I was obviously I could hear your sort of like subscription,
Yeah.
but I can also see that the straight away we have an issue with the thing there because I've got latest follower, latest subscriber, top cheer. So that you've
Ooh.
obviously have balanced it there.
Wait,
quite
hold
well.
on. That wasn't there before.
Well, it definitely is there now.
Distract
But
the
also-
audience. I will fix it. Don't worry.
But also on my end, what made that funnier is as soon as the intro ended, I heard a very, very frantic set of clicking because obviously your mic is set open. So all I
To
heard
you,
was
yes. Yeah, it was open
click,
to you. It's
click,
okay.
click,
No,
click,
it was
click.
behind the scenes. No one heard it. It's fine.
chat's also not showing up either, so your chat's broken as well.
No. I told I tried to get chat working. It just didn't ever work. It's fine.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed with how you've managed to get that going.
Okay, that all should have been there. That was all deleted. That's weird.
Well, apparently, there we go. Now I can see it deleted. Chat isn't showing up. But
No.
hello and welcome to You Think You Do, But You Don't.
A
As you
typical
can tell,
start.
Dunkirk isn't hosting this week, which is obviously showing through quite well. I might even take a turn hosting. See if that works out. I don't know
Oh
if
god,
it
it'll
works,
just
but who
get
knows?
worse.
You
It'll
never
just
know. It
get
might
worse.
actually work out quite nicely.
I haven't even closed
For
my
those
door.
of you that are joining in for the first time, my name is the Kexman. I am joined by Farseer.
Hello.
And Dunkirk appears to be frozen in some sort of hellhole,
Again.
otherwise known as Glasgow. So, if you want to know what the show's all about, we essentially take a look at some of the news that's occurred over the week, or even something that has been kind of playing on our minds for a little while. And it's not just a case of, oh, this happened, this is nice. It's more a case of, this happened, I think it goes this way, you're wrong, screw you, get out of my face.
Yes.
Slightly different gross process. I don't think he's frozen. I think he's just like that.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's Dunkirk.
yeah.
He is with us. That's him. That's just how he is.
That's how he is. He's just relaxing today.
He
had a busy day on
expressed
him.
as well his joy of how he attended last time. Like, he expressed how happy he was that he was able to attend yet not be here last time.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and he's attending again.
and he's attending again. Yeah,
He's here. It's quite impressive. You may also hear at some
fantastic.
point Farseer's voice go. It is slowly but surely disappearing. I
Maybe.
don't know what he's caught.
Maybe.
I don't know what's happened. My voice is as strong as ever, as you can probably hear. I'm like a really. I'm like the unevolved form of Brian Blessed. He's my final evolution.
Oh Christ!
That's how
he is the final form, right? Honestly,
Brian Blessed is my final form.
if you could choose a member of humanity to say, right, we want to evolve them to the next level, would you choose Brian Blessed and see what becomes?
Oh, I don't know. Brian Blessed's quite good. There's a part of me that would also mention the guy who played the Mountain from Game of Thrones.
Oh, shit.
Simply
that'd be
because,
scary.
simply because, yeah, exactly. But for all intents and purposes, he's actually a very, very nice guy. Nicolas Cage is a good answer.
Oh god, no! Because then all
I
he
want to
would do...
watch him evolve into something even weirder. I don't think that could happen. with
No,
Nicolas
if he
Cage.
evolved anymore, he could spread and just clone himself across the
Yeah,
world, which
exactly.
is his
He'd be
end
like
goal.
Agent Smith in the Matrix.
Exactly.
And
Everyone. would be
speaking of
Nicolas Cage.
end goals, there's some interesting topics coming today that tie quite nicely into Enzoth, corruption, and 8.3, which is his end goal.
Yes.
The big one, obviously, corrupted gear. Is a big one, kind of something that has changed slightly over the past couple of weeks, especially on the PTR as we've been taking a look at the various different iterations of it.
Mhm.
Another one, guides from 8.3 and guides in general
Yeah.
This is something that you have been kind of speaking out about, whether or not it's a good thing, whether they're bad things. I'm sure we'll be able to dive right into those and see exactly what you feel.
Yes.
And we've also got, when is 8.3? I mean, I've already said it's like the 22nd of January.
For the raid. For the raid, you specifically said.
For the raid release is the 22nd of January, yes.
But like we would have thought that, I mean, there's a lot going on the PTR, but by now we'd have hoped...
21st even.
We'd have thought, or we'd have hoped that we'd have thought that we'd have had like some semblance of an idea. Ignore that, by the way, guys. I'm fixing things. We have
happened?
nothing.
God, I saw it. I saw it.
No one saw nothing. So hopefully we'll have like some semblance of an idea soon enough. Like I hope so anyway. But you know what? Because
we've got to find out. We've got to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, look. It's getting, what is it now? The 6th of December. See, look, I fixed chat. It's tiny, but I fixed it. It's there. There you go. That's what you get.
Yeah, okay.
But
what is this? A chat for ants?
Yes. I'm now catering to ants. Look at we cater to each and every species here on the planet here on You Think You Do, but
thorax you don't. Or no thorax, you are welcome here on Warcraft Radio.
Exactly.
You're welcome. Obviously, welcome to Leo, Grosprot, Khaled, Rav's obviously in the chat, and anyone else that is listening. Thank you for joining us here on Friday, the 6th of December. We're getting close to Christmas.
We are. And thank you for listening if you're listening on a podcast or joining us here on Twitch.
Yes, thank you. Now, you obviously mentioned 8.3. When are we getting 8.3?
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to dive into because we know that Christmas is around the corner, and as a general, they don't like to release patches during the Christmas period.
Let's just call it Wintervale. Let's keep it thematic.
Wintervale, yeah. So yeah, during Wintervale, they don't usually like to release patches. They have done it a couple of times in the past.
Yeah.
But we haven't genuinely seen a full patch. Or at least a raid over the holiday period. So it's safe to assume we will be getting the raid in January. Outside of that, it's anyone's guess. We've had dates for patches kind of show up a week before they were due to go live.
I hope that's the case.
I could imagine. I could imagine seeing it the week before Christmas. Kind of give everyone the holiday period, the Wintervale period, to kind of sort of dive into it, manage to get through all the horrific visions, upgrade their cloak, potentially get some of the new gear, experience the invasions. A lot of people saying in chat, they're saying after the anniversary ends on January the 7th. That's not a bad shout, to be honest. If that ends on January the 7th, that's not a bad little shout. So the anniversary ends straight into new content.
It makes me kind of, I'm a little, there's part of me that's disappointed. Like, obviously, I'm a firm believer of it's done when it's done with Blizzard, right? But, like, I guess I'd be lying if I say I wasn't a little disappointed that I have something new to play on World of Warcraft over Christmas. Because right now, my subscription, I had like a year-long subscription on there from working at Blizzard myself. And
did you work at Blizzard? You never mentioned that.
Yeah, no. And basically, it's now finally run out. And I have not found a reason to renew it just yet until 8.3 comes along, because there is honestly not a lot for me to do. There's some tiny things here and there. I got my Crimson Tide Stallion, like the seahorse or what have you. That was pretty cool. But aside from that, I don't feel myself logging on. And I can't justify paying $8.99 or $9.99 it is now. I can't justify myself paying $9.99 a month to basically sit and wait. I will wait until 8.3 comes out, then I'll pay the sub again, then I'll be back. And I wouldn't be surprised if I wasn't the only person that felt that way if their subs have expired at this point.
I mean, I'm even more impressed that you've been able to get yourself into a position where you're not resubbing to WoW, but also you're not changing the title of the stream either. That's quite impressive. So I think you should probably do that as well.
I should.
So I think it's a very good point. Is that 8.3 is bringing a lot of solo stuff. With it, obviously, you've got the horrific visions, you've got the invasions, but at the same time, it's also, giving you the ability to group up with players on that. So it's kind of giving you player choice when it comes to what are you going to be doing and how do you want to approach this, which is a very, very good thing. And the holidays is a perfect time to do that. A lot of people have time off. The other side of that, though, is a lot of people will spend time with their other halves, with their families. So all the time that they may have had, you immediately kind of lose almost. So I can kind of understand why this is, why they're staying away from the holidays. A lot of people won't be playing Warcraft because they're spending time with families. They're going away. They're not going to have as much time on the computer as they would have if they were just off for like an extended period of time.
Huh.
It's a catch-22. It's a bit of both. You sound confused.
I think the URL for getting to the dashboard changed because they've got a new dashboard in on Twitch now, so the old URL thing doesn't work. But I think I know how to get there. It's okay.
Hang on, Rav, can you change the title for me, please?
I think I figured it out. It's okay. I'm pretty sure I figured it out. It's a very, very simple fix by the looks of it. There we go.
We'll have to wait and see.
I found. Wait, is that the right one?
He's got it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, no, the URL is different though.
He says he's got it. We will wait and see. We're gonna have to wait and see if he does get it. What episode number are we
on? Is it 9? Because we skipped last week, didn't we? Because we weren't here last week.
I technically did an episode.
I did a. It wasn't like
it was a solo show.
You think you want a solo show? It was like an unofficial episode, though, wasn't it? Really.
So Leo says that last year they released 8.1 in December and just held off the raid until January. Kind of wish they'd done that with 8.3. God, 8.1 was last year. What is happening?
It does. When you think of it like that, it does seem so slow, doesn't it? It seems
so slow, but at the same time, it feels like this year has just blown by. I mean, think about it. In 3 weeks, this year will be over. In 3 weeks, this decade is going to be over. So that's a big difference. I would have much preferred them, as Leo said, for them to do. Here we go. Here is 8.1. We're releasing it the week before Christmas. Gives you time, which is perfect because Christmas is on the Wednesday, so they could release it on the 16th or the 17th, which would make perfect timing. Mm-hmm. I don't think they will because we probably would have heard about it by now, but they may surprise us. We don't know. It would be perfect for them, obviously, to get people involved into it and then bringing the raid in sometime in January. If they do bring the raid in, then I would, and they have the release date on the 17th. On the 17th. Mm-hmm. I would be honestly surprised if I have my prediction correct. Yeah. That would be 5 weeks wait without the raid being released, which would be a little bit extreme. If, however, it is released on the anniversary event, which is the 7th, then we wait. Hang on. Rav needs to go.
Hold the show. Oh crap.
Hold the show.
Oh,
everyone, hold.
Have we been showless without Rav before? Can we do this?
I don't know. Oh no, but just keep going. Well, don't tell me to hold the show and then run away and then say, "Oh no, it's fine." Which one is it, Rav?
Is it hold the show or
give me something to work with here? Oh. If it is released on the 7th, then I think my prediction of the 22nd or 21st. Then I believe it was the 21st. Yeah, then the 21st would be a good prediction. I could be completely wrong. I'm sure we'll find out. I don't believe I am. Mm-hmm. We'll have to wait and see. Oh boy. Fingers crossed. I mean, Leo makes a good point. Is 8.3 will be on PTR longer than 8.2. So 8.2 had 2 brand new zones and was only on PTR for a bit over 2 months. 8.3 will be on PTR if they release it January 7th for 3 months. Yes, 8.2 obviously had 2 brand new zones. However, what I will say is that the raid in 8.3 is much larger. They also have a brand new system in corruption, which God knows they didn't need, but they're adding in, so that's going to take a lot more time. They also have, obviously, the Maddening Visions alongside the legendary Cloaks. So there's a lot more for them to kind of really sink their teeth into when it comes to testing, when it comes to making sure that everything is working. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does last slightly longer. And I think 3 months is a good release sort of schedule for a PTR testing thing. It gives you enough time to do raid testing. We know they've been doing mythic testing alongside the regular heroic testing. They've even opened up entire wings for Nyalotha for various different, obviously for various different bosses. So they're getting very, very far into their testing when it comes to Nyalotha. So I'm going to say if it isn't on the 17th, the week before Christmas, then it will be January 7th, when the anniversary event ends.
Are we looking then at 5
We're
months?
through the looking gas here, gentlemen.
Are we looking at then 5 months of 8.3 until Shadowlands? If we're predicting like May, sort of, or maybe
I wouldn't imagine May. I
you
kind of
thinking
remember
more
July.
July, like when BFA was released. in
July, August, yeah, that's what I can imagine. I wouldn't be surprised if within... I would not be surprised if we have PTR, the beta or the alpha, however you want to call it, of Shadowlands appearing the week after or 2 weeks after the raid is launched in retail. That's the time scale I would go with.
Here's a weird thought. Now, I don't know if this has been felt before when it comes to like the last
Presence
patch.
I haven't felt since.
Yes. This. But no, it's sort of related actually. But so obviously we've got the last patch coming out, which it isn't out yet, and we've had a big cinematic reveal of Shadowlands and whatever, and everyone's hyped for that. And everyone's sort of like wanting Shadowlands now and whatever, and it sort of takes away a little bit of the excitement from 8.3. Let's not lie, it does.
Potentially,
people do want Shadowlands. It looks to be a really
good
good
the Battle.net launcher changed over to Shadowlands. What?
Oh,
hang on a minute. Let me just research this.
And before Shadowlands out tomorrow, 8.3 is a ruse. But here's the question then: have they done this before? Have they done this before, where they've announced an expansion before the last patch, and then the interest has shifted more onto the expansion than the patch?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they did that with WoD.
All right. Okay.
Think?
Do you think so? So
Question
they
mark,
announced Warlords of Draenor before the Siege of Orgrimmar? Do you think? You are quite familiar with the Siege of Orgrimmar. This is one thing I'd kind of test you on.
I can't remember. I think I do, but I don't. Hang on. Let me... Oh, God, that's bright. I've got myself a new monitor, and the white is so much brighter than the previous monitor.
Do you know what? Did you just like unleash Zera? Kexman, the light in your eyes held so much promise. The light is your destiny.
Shut off, you diamond edge bitch. Get away.
You are now becoming the chosen one. The light will heal your scars.
No. Hang on.
I am my scars.
I am my eyes.
He really is being blessed by Zero right now.
It was announced on November the 8th, 2013. Warlords was announced on November the 8th. Let's have a look. Oh, Jesus. So Siege... God, Lord. So Siege of Orgrimmar was actually released on September the 10th. So it was released 2 months before the actual announcement of Warlords. That's why, yes, Siege of Orgrimmar was 14 months of a raid.
So it was announced before Warlords then?
Yes, it was released before Warlords, let alone announced.
Okay. So then, has there been another time when it's happened then? I think obviously the reason they always try and do it after the last patch is because they obviously want to avoid the taking away
spoilers.
The hype. Spoilers and taking away the hype from the current patch, because yes, we all know that we're going to defeat Enzoth. Well, actually, we didn't know though, did we? Like, we had predictions on this show that Enzoth might not be killed, that we might end up in some sort of like time skip or something. We didn't know, right? But already Shadowlands confirms that that's not the case. It already takes away all that speculation. And I think they try and want to prevent that, but this time they haven't done it. I think they needed to give us this release, which I did approve of.
So Legion was announced on August the 6th, which is obviously the bloody Gamescom.
Yeah.
Fury of Hellfire was actually June 23rd, so about a month and a half before.
Okay. So
yeah.
So is this the first time then?
I think it may be the first time.
I think it'd be
genuinely was the first time. We knew we had the announcement of that we don't have the Ice. Rav saying Ice Crown
with Burning Crusade and Ice Crown. Possibly because Sunwell was like a filler patch, right? It wasn't supposed to be, but they ended up doing it or something like that.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a thing
Crossover there.
Oh, Ice Crown into Cataclysm. Oh.
Ooh. Let me check that. Hang on, double check it.
Possibly, yeah.
Every time I do this, I lose a bit of myself.
Kex has to access the Naru net to
Yeah.
to do all this.
Speak to me. So Ice Crown Citadel was released on the 27th of May. And that's the 27th of May. I want to say it was 2009. I think. Yeah, so then we have 2009, I believe. Cataclysm. Announced date was October 4th. Yeah, October 4th.
Okay.
So there was a slight bit of a delay on that one. So that's the only other time.
It seems to be the exception rather than the rule, though, with Blizzard. Which
Yes, it definitely does. It definitely does.
Again, because of obviously taking away the energy from the current expansion, which they never want to do.
Yeah.
And wisely so. I think that's now been done a little bit with this one, because now people are just like, oh, it's fuck 8.3, I want Shadowlands. Which, understandable. On the other hand, I think it was still a good move for them to have the release date. Maybe they could have just dropped the cinematic and not had like here's all the gameplay and stuff, but they wanted to make BlizzCon the biggest it could be, and so they did.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it's like I don't agree, but on the other hand, I'm like, I kind of do. It's a bit of a split one in this one. Oh, Kexman. Thank you for the emote.
I'm pro like that.
Oh, thank you for emote, Kexman. What the hell is that? Ha shrug left. It's like it's a snowman arm. Oh my god! On its own, it looks terrifying. It's just like coming out of nowhere.
Kind of creepy. Yeah, this does seem to be the exception, like you said, rather than the rule. And I don't know whether it means we're going to see Shadowlands sooner rather than later. I think it means that we are going to definitely see something more advanced than we were expecting. We did only have kind of like a small area that me and Athlos played in at BlizzCon. So
yeah,
I'm not sure how far that's going to go. When it comes down to, how far that means that they're along. There were no differences to any of the classes, which obviously takes quite a while. The animations were in there, which were quite nice. Obviously, the models of a lot of the enemies, at the very least, in the area that we were in Bastion. Whether or not this corresponds to, obviously, them being that far along with the other zones, I don't know. But I would imagine we are going to be seeing a beta or an alpha on Shadowlands sooner rather than later, if I'm perfectly honest with you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we've kind of got ballparks about when Shadowlands is going to be out. So let's move a little back. Let's take it back a little, back to current times.
Take it back now, y'all.
Take it back now, y'all. Let's take it back a couple of months.
One hop this time.
Back to January, which we're not in yet, of 2020. And let's park it there. So
we're going to park it in 2020.
We're going to park it right there in January 2020. So Corrupted Gear.
Yeah.
Corrupted Gear is replacing Titan Forging, yes? As I understand
Yes.
It? Right. Now, I have gone on record on this show saying that I've never been the biggest fan of Titan Forging. It doesn't seem to
Very
me...
few people are.
Yeah.
Very, very few people are.
It doesn't seem to me like the best thing because obviously, random big RNG about things upgrading, items upgrading. It's not very a fair system when it's all by chance. And
adding RNG onto items that are already RNG feels unfair in some respects, and also feels just ridiculous.
It's like, oh fair. Look, the Sulfurous Hammer Ragnar's dropped. Oh cool, it's the shit version. Cool.
Yay.
is essentially what it is, right? Like, imagine if you went through all of that effort to craft the Sulfurous, like back in Classic, but it had Titan Forging, right? But by crafting it, you had a chance to Titan Forge it. Imagine going through all that effort and crafting it, and it didn't Titan Forge. Imagine
They'd
how
never do that though,
angry.
because the stats are worth, the mats and everything are far too expensive, and the grinding is horrific. Or hey, all you need to do is just pay an extra, $5, and you can roll yourself a perfect copy of it. Exactly. Imagine that.
But obviously this is an exaggerated example, but it's sort of, you get where we're coming from. So
yeah,
corrupted gear. Now I like this better because it's already thematic, because they're like, oh, Titan Forging. What have the Titans got to do with Battle for Azeroth aside from Magni screaming at you?
Yeah.
It's not. It wasn't champion. It's champion. It wasn't really thematic. Like, what was it called in Warlords when they first brought it in?
Warforging.
So it's Warforging. It sort of, I guess, like it
sort
had
of fit, maybe, kind of.
Sort of, yeah. And then in Legion, it was Warforging again, was it? Or did it change to
Titan Forging?
It was Titan Forging.
I believe that is when it changed to Titan Forging.
Right. Okay.
So the problem, obviously, with Titan Forging is, you just don't really have. There's such a wide range of item levels that you can hit that something then kind of becomes just problematic, because you're going, yeah, okay, I got the item I wanted, but I didn't get the best version of this item.
Yeah.
And then you may never see that item again. You may see lower item. It's pretty horrific.
Imagine that in
the
current
corruption system
tier content. Imagine that when you were doing Siege of Orgrimmar and you wanted the Tusks of Manaroth. Imagine if they dropped but they're like, oh, but they're not the upgraded versions.
Warforging was 5 to 10 item levels. Titan Forging is anything above 15.
Right. Okay.
So yeah.
But how would you feel? How do you felt at the time of Siege of Orgrimmar? If the Tusks dropped, but they weren't Titan Forged, I know you want them for the look, but
it was a nightmare in Warlords. When I was raiding in Warlords, when I was raiding in Legion, it was a painful thing. It was nasty. Warforging was something in Siege as well. I believe you only had it could only go up twice though, I think. But yeah, it was horrible. I hated it. Thunder Forging came in and Throne of Thunder. It was the same thing, just with a different name. They just gave it a different name.
Yeah, I think it was very in Pandaria that it wasn't. You didn't notice it as
but
much,
it was still the same thing. It was still the same issue in that you had an RNG chance to gain an item, and then on top of that RNG chance, you had an RNG chance to gain a better version of the item, which kind of then left you in a little bit of a rut, because you could get the same item as somebody else, but because of reasons, they would have a better version of it. Admittedly, it wasn't much of a jump, but it was still present. And obviously it led on to the Titan Forging that we know now, where you can get an item that is 45 item levels higher than what you're already getting, which is beyond a joke. You can legitimately have somebody who dives into Raid Finder one day and all of a sudden comes out with a trinket or a weapon or something along those lines that has the same item level as someone who is a mythic raider. That is a step too far. Yes, the chances of that happening are ridiculous, because it's an RNG chance on an RNG chance on an and it's not just one RNG chance, it's multiple.
But that in of itself is the problem. That's not good. Why? Did Blizzard really put that in? Yeah, this is a good idea. Well, obviously it did, because they put it in, and it makes me question the design team, or the lead rather, who lets this through. Maybe Ian, maybe somebody else. Yeah, it could be Ian. I guess he has the final say, right? Like, everything will have to go through Ian. So then I would go to Ian. I'd be like, at the time, why did you think this was a good idea? Did you think RNG upon RNG upon RNG was a good idea? And for them people who don't get the look of the RNG, how disappointed they would be that they have the crap version of this item that they want to get. So there's bad luck if you don't get it, and then it's a matter of twists and turns to even get the best. So it's bad on both sides.
Yeah, I think I know Gross has hit the nail on the head. Is that it's meant to be an upside. It was meant to be a nice surprise. Like, oh, all of a sudden I've got this item. It's 10 item levels higher. Fantastic. The only problem you have is the moment you start introducing something like that is people will then go, oh, I've got this item. And instead of going, brilliant, this is the item I wanted, they're immediately going, it's not the best version, I hate it.
Yeah.
And Time forging was kind of, it wasn't needed, for example, but it obviously gave a little bit more incentive to continuously run the raids. It gave something along those lines, something for you to constantly sort of work towards a slow, after you've finished the initial gear treadmill of, okay, I now have enough gear to enter myself into raids, no matter what form that took.
Yeah.
It then gives you a secondary one that you can use if you wish. I don't think it would be, it basically becomes mandatory to a degree.
Yeah.
I've got this item, but it hasn't Warforged, get rid of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure top end girls did that.
Which
I'm pretty sure they did.
Very, very annoying when you consider one of the things that they did when they got rid of reforging was that they wanted players to be able to look at an item straight away and say, this is an upgrade, rather than going, right, okay, I've got this item, I need to roll off X amount of hit off this item.
Oh, they can, because if it doesn't Titan Forge, they can see straight away it's not an upgrade.
But here's the problem. That doesn't necessarily make sense. The problem we now have is that now they're adding more and more and more systems into place that completely goes against what they said. For example, the Heart of Azeroth system.
Ugh.
They want pieces to, one of the main things of getting rid of reforging, and I never had an issue with reforging in the first place. I want to make that absolutely clear. I enjoyed reforging. It gave a little bit more player agency when they could say, oh, I've got this piece of gear. It might not be the best, but if I roll off, say, I don't know, mastery off this item and I put haste on that item, all of a sudden I can use it and it's actually an upgrade for me. Whereas now it's a case of, okay, I've got a chest that's dropped. What's my Heart of Azerite level? Do I have the right talents on that one? Is that talent going to be better than that one? Obviously, if I lose that talent, it means that I don't have double of this one. And now we're getting into a position where it's like, oh, this piece of gear dropped. Okay, what's my corruption level? Do the negatives outweigh the positives on this, or do I cleanse it? Do I need to use my cloak to potentially drop the corruption on this one? And it, again, it kind of goes massively against what they stated when they said, we want you to be able to look at a piece of gear and know straight away if it was an upgrade.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore, even if it's a higher item level. They said they wanted item level. If you saw something that was 50 levels higher than what you currently had, then you should be able to know that that will be an upgrade. That hasn't happened.
That's
and
definitely true.
I feel as though it's something that needs to be addressed quite quickly.
On a lighter note, Mr. Ghostlaw says, McForged my chicken nuggets, which I approve of. McForging is something I would put my vote behind to put into the game.
McForging. How would McForging work? So you could be like, oh, I got the spolders of the war chief.
Or it turns into a chicken leg. It upgrades into
No, I disagree. No, it's like, okay, so I've managed to drop my spolders of the war chief. They're really good. But if I try really hard, I might be able to get spolders of the war chief with cheese. Like that's what we call a McForge. Or you could turn around,
or you can actually buy, the tender chicken legs, the really basic ones, like from the inn and Crossroads, something. If you have them, you can actually socket them into the McForge piece of gear, and it upgrades them. But eventually they will, like the old reagents, where they eventually be used up. They will be used up over time, so you've got to keep buying chicken to put in them to make sure to keep it topped up. I think that's a good system. I think we should definitely put that in. I like it.
Ghostlaw says Kexman and I both buy a 4-piece nugget, but mine McForges to a 10-piece. I tell you what, Mr. Ghostlaw, if that happens, violence is gonna be had. I like to socket my nuggets with barbecue sauce. I don't think you can legally say that out loud, Gross. I don't think that's something you can.
I think we have touched upon a new cooking thing, for in-game. This is how they can make cooking more interesting.
McForging?
Yeah, this sounds awesome. So then you do that with the legs, and then you get sauces. But in order to get the sauce, you need to be a cook, and you need to do this, and you get McForging. Sounds awesome.
Do I say, right? Okay, I could cook myself some spicy chimera chops.
Yeah.
Or I could cook myself some spicy chimera chops, and I can include that in a meal. So I get my spicy chimera chops, a drink, and a side for the same mats, or for 0.5 or times 0.5 the mats.
Yeah.
So you end up getting a meal deal. So you could have, I've got my spicy chimera chops with a side of Dolaran fries.
Getting hungry.
And I can have that with a with a manna berry milkshake. There we go.
Getting
There
hungry.
we go. I have solved the warforging.
We have solved the warforging and improved cooking on the way through. Someone tell
Oh, no,
Nomi.
yeah, someone go around. I want this clipped. I want it sent to Ian.
Yep.
I want it sent to J. Allen Brack, and I want it sent to Alex Afrasiabi.
And Nomi.
All to know, and Nomi, because I want them all to know
Yep.
that we have not only managed to solve the warforging issue, we have also managed to make cooking as a profession better. Admittedly, there may be some slight problems getting around the legality of calling it muckforging. I don't know whether we would be able to get around that. I'm fairly certain that we could. You could. It may
Finally,
be
though.
a bit of a minefield.
Finally,
but
some
it
good
needs
fucking
to
forging. That's what we got out.
Yes, yes, that is what I need. Yeah, I think kind of staying back on track in regards to warforging. It's I think we've spoken about it.
But what about the corrupt forging though? So what about the corrupted stuff? I
So
like
the corrupt
this.
forging, that brings a whole new that brings the whole new sort of like systems into place. Now, the corruption forging it sounds very, very simple on paper, is in that an item that drops an item that drops. Yeah, I see exactly what Grossbot just put.
I want that title. Continue.
You deserve that title. The item that drops you get has an extra thing on it where if you have, it may have a powerful on use effect or a powerful active ability or on hit, a chance on hit. Very, very powerful, but it does also increase something that you are going to gain called corruption. And obviously, the more items that you wear, the more corruption you gain. The more corruption you gain, the more bad things happen to you, and there are certain thresholds. Some of them include whenever you cast a spell, you have a chance to throw down a massive pool of void below you.
Yep.
Some of them have a chance where they will spawn something that will chase you, and if it hits you, it obviously does a lot of damage.
Oh, what was that called again?
It's-
It was the terror
from Beyond or something.
that was it. The
Terror from Beyond
thing
or
from
something.
beyond is what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, and I think the starting one, every time you take damage, you have a chance to be slowed for X amount of time. And they work in a way so that the first one you gain is the chance to be slowed, then the void pool, then the thing, and it just basically works where the more you get more piled into you, and eventually it gets to a point where you take more damage and you get less healing. So
It eventually
you don't
gets.
wanna
It
get to that
eventually
point.
goes over a threshold where it's not worth it, which is good. And the reason
Exactly.
I like corrupt forging is because it's not like Titan forging. It's literally its own thing. It has its own little system. It works in of itself, and it's for this patch. And I
Yes.
sort of like that. That's kind of cool because that means it's not going to be, something we've got to think about going to Shadowlands. It's not something that we have to worry about like later on. It's in this patch. It's a nice little gimmick. Enjoy this for now. This is what it is for now. So that's why I like it. And again, thematic. But there is one little addition I wish that they'd add to it, and maybe possibly take this into the future. So, if yourself or anyone else in chat or on the podcast has seen on Wowhead, for example, the window that you get when you open up the item window, you've got a little eye at the top to signify that it's a little Nzoth eye at the top to signify that this gear is corrupted. There's also very, very, very subtle purple edges to the window as well, and it's a really, really nice addition. I wish they would take it one step
interesting.
further though.
Okay.
And so it sort of goes back to when you said someone should take a look at a piece of gear and know right away about it. I think that they could add this in like the gear list. So say for example you loot a boss and you have the purple, and you go through the names to see what it is. I think corrupted gear should have an eye next to it, like just before it. So then you know which bits are corrupted,
so
which bits aren't.
Without looking at them.
Yeah. So you already know like that's corrupted, that's not. So you could already look. So even before you click into it, that bit's a bit of corrupted gear to give things a bit more clarity. I think that's fine because then it just separates it a bit because there's so many purples. You get a list of purples, you literally have to go through them individually, go which one's which because epics are no longer epic. So with this, I think that'd be good. I think that would be a nice little addition.
Well, in regards to the corruption, so the negative ones that we have currently, are grasping tendrils is the first one. So it basically slows you whenever you take damage, and a percentage of the slow, excuse me, depends on how high your corruption is. So when you're starting out, your corruption level is 10%. If you get damaged, it has an RPPM of 1, so you're realistically going to see it once every minute. You'll be slowed by 20%. However, if you have 60 corruption, you're slowed by 70%, which is a very, very big deal. And this lasts for 5 seconds. If you go up to 20 corruption, then there is the Eye of Corruption effect. Again, this has a 1 RPPM, so realistically you're going to be seeing it once every minute. Whenever you use a spell or ability, you have a chance to summon an Eye of Corruption for 8 seconds. If you're in the range, which you can see because there is a circle around it, then you will take shadow damage from the eye for the duration of the 8 seconds. Obviously, the more corruption you have, the range is bigger, and the damage increases as well. 40 corruption, the next threshold. Grand Delusions is the one that summons the thing from beyond, which pursues you for 8 seconds.
Like you got cut out a little bit during that speech, so it's kind of creepy. The thing does not want you calling its name.
Again, this has 1 RPPM once every minute, roughly, and the thing from beyond does chase you, it does damage you. It has a fairly high amount of health, realistically, so you're not kill it in the time frame. However, they have recently changed it so that it doesn't last for 10 seconds, it lasts for 8 seconds. Okay. And on top of that, if you are able to use some form of CC or loss of control effect on the thing from beyond, it despawns. So you could technically set up a macro, if you're a target macro, you so wish to kind of get rid of it. Still annoying to get rid of, because if you're caught in a very, very bad situation,
the last thing you want is that running at you from somewhere, like a portal opening up and this thing coming for your booty.
Yes. However, the next step, level 60, is where things start to get really nasty, which is Cascading Disaster. What Cascading Disaster does is, if you are hit by the thing from beyond that you spawn at 40 corruption, you are immediately affected by Grasping Tendrils and Eye of Corruption. So that means that if you're at 60 corruption, you're slowed by 70%. You're stuck inside the middle of the Eye of Corruption, taking increasing shadow damage. And if you are already in obviously a very, very bad situation when it comes to positioning in a raid, you're going to get hit very, very hard. Unless you immediately.
It's like putting like about 6 flame wreaths around someone, tying a lasso around them, and then dragging them through. Like each and every one. Like, holy crap.
If for whatever reason you have 80 corruption, you get the inevitable Doom debuff. This debuff is always active, it's not activated on anything else. And it's just a flat damage taken increased and healing taken reduced. It's just a flat number. So if your corruption level, you start off at 80, it's 5%. If you go all the way up to 100, it's 25%. However, to coincide with this, we also have a legendary cloak, which has bringing back memories of Mists of Pandaria.
Everyone loves that.
What you'll find with the corruption system is that every single piece of gear that drops has a chance to become corrupted. What you'll find is it will have a positive affix that it increases your power in some way, but it also has an amount of corruption stat on the item as well. So you could have an item that may have a very, very nice stat increase. For example, there are some. I'm trying to think if there's any good here that I can.
Are you by perchance referring to, when you speak of this legendary Cloak X-Man, as... Yeah, I'm going to attempt this. Ashdrakamas? Is that the one you're referring to? Ashdrakamas.
It sounds like you're saying something backwards.
Ashdrakamas?
If I was to record that and play it forwards, it would sound like you were saying
something
satanic. The pronunciation, I think, is Ashdrakamas, I believe is the pronunciation.
That may sound a bit better, than what I was doing.
I could be incorrect on that one.
We'll wait till Rathian says it and then we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll wait till Rathian says it, because he will say it at some point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there is, see if there's anything here. I mean, for example, we'll go with a very, very simple one, which is Eye Stalk of Il'gynoth. that's one of the weapons that may potentially have a positive corruption affix.
You'd like to hear Dunkirk try and say it?
Oh no, here we go.
Yes.
So corrupted weapons. So these corrupted weapons will always have a positive affix, but they also have a hefty 25 corruption cost. So each class has at least one weapon that they can equip. Some example of these affixes are your spells and abilities have a chance to show you the ineffable truth, increasing the rate your cooldowns recover by 20% 12 seconds, which is a very, very substantial thing. Obviously, corrupted items determine the potency of the affix by randomly choosing tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 changes. So, the higher the tier, the more corruption that will be on that piece. So, if you've got a tier 3 item, it's going to have 25 corruption on it. If it's a tier 2 item, it's going to have 17 corruption on it. You can gain various different things, like, for example, you can get a tier 2 item that has 17 corruption on it. However, it will increase the amount of haste you gain from all sources by 5%, which is a fairly substantial buff. This includes avoidance, haste, mastery, crit, versatility, health regen, healing received, leech, crit damage and healing, which is very, very good, a periodic damage reduction, and a glimpse of clarity, which your spells and abilities have a chance to grant you a glimpse of clarity, reducing the cooldown of your next one spell cast by 3%.
So, this legendary cloak is essential.
Yes.
You can go through the patch without it, but it's highly recommended you don't, because things will get very, very difficult.
Exactly. It's one of those where you can't... It's very, very... Garrison in Warlords of Draenor. You can do it without the garrison, but it's going to prove impossible. This is something where you could technically you don't need to have it, but if you're going to be doing raids and stuff, you better believe that you get this cloak. It has recently been changed, which is interesting, because it recently did sort of turn into something slightly different. It was recently it had a main stat proc, which basically just increased your main stat, which, whilst it was fun, it doesn't really it's boring realistically. It's fun because I get to see big numbers, but as a general rule, you sat there going, oh, okay, I've got an extra 2,000 strength.
Yeah.
Whereas the newest one, actually, it's a 3-minute cooldown. However, on use, you dispel any effects of Enzoth's corruption and become immune to any further corruption effects for 6 seconds. So if you find yourself in a position where you're gonna, all of a sudden you get hit by the thing from beyond, you've got 65 corruption, oh no, you're pinned, you're slowed by 70%, boom, you use the cloak, you are able to escape from those very, very easily.
Okay.
The cloaks themselves do obviously have a fair amount of stats on them too. And it basically does give you it does help you kind of use the cloak for stuff like that. However, it does mean that you may not be able to goblin, because it already has.
Do you want to say that one again? You cut up. You may not be able to boblin, is all I heard.
Yeah, you may not be able to boblin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was saying you may not be able to put a goblin glider, because technically the cloak already has an on use. It hasn't been tested yet, but we're going to find out and see if that's the case.
I'm pretty sure Dunkirk would call that horseshit.
That could be really confusing. He probably would, because the goblin glider is the only thing he's actually good at. Let's face it.
So this leads on. This leads on now. So obviously you're going through a guide to look at all this, I assume. So you know all the ins and outs of it.
Yeah, it was a guide, more like a look at exactly what's happening with this.
Okay.
A look at kind of how these kind of work. Obviously, from data mining, testing stuff on PTR.
Okay.
So that's
it nicely leads on to me touching upon the next subject, which is the guides of 8.3. Now
You can't do that.
I can do that, and I shall. Upgrading your legendary cloak, Ashakamas, in the heroic.
Do you want me to say it for you?
No, it's alright. I'm sticking with that.
Okay.
So basically, there is now a guide, PTR guide up on Wowhead, that basically
Wowhead, good people.
Yep. very handy for that informations. So there is basically a guide up there now saying, this is the best way to level up your cloak, this is what you should do, this is what you can do, here's tables, here's the numbers, here's everything. Now, for people that like to min-max, for people that like to slam through everything, get it done, want to know, the exact, the best path they can go, the best route they can go. Well, this is definitely something out there for them, and I'd say there's quite a few people out like that, and that's fine. However, here's the thing with me. So, where
do you want to start?
I heard that there was a guild. I think it was Pride's. I think Pride said he was in a guild. It could be mistaken that it was Pride, but I'm pretty sure it was. He was in a guild where they didn't look at guides for any raids or anything. That they used to go in there and they used to figure it out themselves. And, do it mechanically, find out what's what, blah, 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 blah. And that's cool. To me, that's what makes WoW, I guess. So, back in the day, there was I guess there was some sort of form of guides in Burning Crusade, but nothing compared to what we have today, right? So,
not at all.
Back in Burning Crusade, you had just an idea of what to do, so you kind of took that on as a little bit of like hints and tips, more like than a full-on guide.
Yeah.
Now, places like Wowhead and other Icy Veins, I guess, and other websites have in-detail guides about every little thing you could do, every little thing you need to do.
Okay.
And
that's not just raiding. That's in general.
That's in general, because we got the legendary cloak as well. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think everyone each to their own, of course. But
naturally.
But in my opinion, I think that it might have gotten a little too easy. Or maybe that's not the right. It might have gotten a little bit too accessible, I suppose. So let me put forward what I mean. So I'm a firm believer of figuring stuff out, and it's much more rewarding if you learn yourself, if you write down these guides. So it's like if you play Dungeons & Dragons, right? You're not going to know unless you've played like loads and loads and loads, and you know this monster does this exactly or this does that, which is rare that you would. You're going to encounter something new. You're going to encounter something new, and you're going to have to figure it out. And you may find out in the end that there was a trick or, a better method or something, and obviously you'll learn from that. And WoW, you kind of have, you retry. In D&D, I suppose you can retry as well, depending on, the situation. Less likely. But once you figure it out, it's kind of like part of the adventure, I suppose. So that sort of went in WoW that you had to sort of figure it out. So even before this patch is out, we now have a guide to Legendary Cloak. Go here, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You'll get your cloak max. So half the work, to me, already feels like it's been done. So the same goes with the raiding as well. Already the raid's being done on the PTR. People are doing all that. We'll know exactly every little thing of the raid. No surprises, nothing new, nothing special. By the time it comes out, we'll know exactly what we need to do. Doing it and reading about it is obviously very different. I'm not saying that this is like a cheat guide or whatever, so you could just ace it, but you know exactly what's going to happen. It'll tell you exactly what'll happen, how often, how much damage, like down to the last detail. There's nothing left out at all. There is no, if this happens, I'm not quite sure. So okay. I think, and again, so I'd like to finish this off with saying again,
please do.
Everyone is free to do what they do. If they want to go through guides, they want to get their guild and go, right, read this guide. We need to know this. We need to go through. Because we don't want to waste time.
Okay.
But I think that part of the adventure of World of Warcraft is figuring stuff out and discovering it your own way. But that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so my counter-argument to that is, do you believe as though the raids that occurred Burning Crusade or during Burning Crusade or any of the content that was out during Burning Crusade was anywhere near the level of what we currently have?
In terms of complexity, no.
So, with that in mind, then yes, you may have, the fact of the matter is, let's face it, the player base over the years has increased their skill by a massive, but it's a massive magnitude compared to what it was. Let's face it. A lot of people will turn around and they will argue this with me. It's fine. They can argue this with me. They are wrong in that vanilla raids are not difficult. Vanilla raids, and to an extent, the earlier Burning Crusade raids were not difficult.
Okay, I'd like to just point out as well, while you're saying this, you're using the right words. Kexman is saying, and I'm hearing him saying it, they are not difficult. Not that they were not difficult, that they are not difficult.
Because at the time, difficult back in the day either way.
To people that hadn't done them before, I believe there was a difficulty to them. But now that we've moved ahead,
no, there wasn't. No, you're basing the difficulty on people not knowing what is coming. That's not difficulty. So difficulty, if you don't know what's coming, that's difficult. That's something that you just repeat.
Then why do they find it hard even after they've been grinding it for like months? Even though they know what's coming.
Because the player base wasn't as skillful back then as it is now. We have many more tools at our disposal when it comes to our characters. We have many more tools at our disposal when it comes to add-ons. However, it cannot be denied that the skill of players that we have now is much higher than the skill of players that we had back then. If you look at the average skill of every single player, guarantee you it's a lot higher now than it was during Vanilla, during Burning Crusade. Not to say that it's yeah, exactly. The average normal dungeon in BFA has more mechanics than MC.
Oh yeah, I agree.
There are certain raids out there. So for example, a good example would be Four Horsemen in the original Nax. Now, Four Horsemen in the original Nax wasn't so much a case of this fight is difficult when it comes down to the mechanics. It's actually relatively easy. There was only a couple of things that you really need to worry about. It was more about organising 40 people to do the right thing at the right time. That doesn't necessarily make the encounter difficult. That makes it more a case of the management is more difficult. If you were to compare that to a similar sort of boss, say for example, you look at a boss that's sort of comparable to that, I would probably put at, I'm trying to think the best way to go. If you were to look at, some of the later bosses that we've had, I can't name one off the top of my head, but as a general rule, the bosses are much harder. They're much less forgiving. The other side is finding 8 tanks for 4 horsemen. Yeah, that was probably the most difficult part of it. But again, that's not a difficulty down to the encounter. That's just the way you manage the fight. So the encounter itself isn't difficult. Now, don't get me wrong. There were fights that were difficult back in those days. Illidan was a very, very difficult fight. But the reason why Illidan was difficult was because it was ahead of its time. Up until that point, most fights had been relatively cut and dry encounters. You look at most of the encounters that you come across, there was probably 1 or 2 main mechanics that you really needed to focus on. Whereas you look at Illidan, it's a multi-stage encounter with different abilities in each different stage. It's almost like it's a prototype for the fights moving forward. You compare the last boss of Naxxramas, which was the last raid of Vanilla, Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad wasn't necessarily that difficult when you look at the ability to pull it off. Slightly different because of the abilities that you just had. You look at Illidan, that's obviously, again, that's also very, very different because you have, I've just noticed as well, you have a hole in your chest.
Oh, you got a hole in your chest.
Yeah, you've got a hole in your chest if you look at your green screen. No, if you drop that down again, you drop your t-shirt down, and then you kind of just stand up a little bit, the green screen goes through your chest.
Oh.
Which is quite comical. So Kel'Thuzad, the fight wasn't that difficult. You had, a couple of different things to think about, but generally, if you were to look at it, you'd go, yeah, that's not that difficult. Illidan was the prototype. Then the next raid, you had, and there's a reason why Naxxramas was cleared so quickly and was considered a massive joke in Wrath of the Lich King, was because there wasn't a whole lot going on there. You then look at Arthas, who is the real last boss of Wrath of the Lich King, and I will hear nothing against it. Arthas as the last boss was you had a lot more to think about
Isn't it
during that.
Sartharion and 3 Drakes?
No, Sartharion and 3 Drakes was the first boss.
Oh, that's it. It was a
You're
Ruby
thinking of
Sanctum.
Ruby Sanctum.
Yeah.
And then you go from that one. The one after you had Deathwing, which yes, many people didn't really enjoy, but it was something different, something more involved. Could you imagine dropping vanilla raiders onto Deathwing or Spider Deathwing or Madness of Deathwing? They'd lose the plot. They struggled to kill Ragnaros. Ragnaros was one of the easiest bosses ever.
Okay.
When you think about it.
But okay, you okay. But continue on to, I guess there is a point that you're gonna come to.
Yeah, so the reason you're saying that guides aren't necessarily needed, I'm saying they are, in the fact that Blizzard have had to step up their game when it comes to developing bosses. We know that, as I've just stated, player skill has increased. We know that it has increased over the years, and bosses have increased with it. We're now at a point where Blizzard are finally tuning these bosses in such a way where if you go in, even if you know the exact timings of everything, it's still a very, very difficult encounter, because the ability that you need to pull off the timings, to pull off the way that you can play these encounters is so far ahead of what happens during vanilla, what happens during realistically the majority of Burning Crusade, and even into Wrath sometimes. It's next level. There's, you look at the stuff that happens now in, as we said, normal and heroic dungeons. It's much higher than the raids back in Molten Core.
I would disagree that it's needed. Excuse me.
I would disagree. Mm-hmm. Fantastic English, well done.
Yeah, I would disagree. I will disagree that it's in fact needed. If you give someone all the tools that everybody has now, the tools that method updates during their raids, the tools that everybody has access to,
the brain trust.
Yeah. If you give them that, if you give them all of that and you throw them into a raid and say, figure it out, with them tools, they will be able to do it. I don't think it's needed. I don't think guides are essential. I think they make them easier. Oh, hell yeah. Because it tells you, like I say, every little thing about the raid and every little thing about whatever guide we're talking about. But I think it's just an extra. I don't think it's like needed. I don't think it's essential. It makes it quicker. Hell yeah, of course it does. But again, I think people that could do it. You argue yourself that players are much more skilled than they used to be. Pushing that forward, yeah. And so then I believe that they don't always need guides, and I think that they can do it. There are guilds that do push through these raids without guides. It'll take them longer to do, but shit, they'll figure it out and they'll do it.
Yeah, again, you can quite easily do that. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, if you realistically want to, if you want to be on the cutting edge, or if you at the very least want to compete at a semi-decent level within your server, you can't go in there without the guides. It's everyone's kind of doing.
Oh,
it.
if you're going to argue if you want to be competitive in the end game and race and fight others, yeah. But no, I'm talking about just in general. If the raid comes out and you got a guild that wants to do it, I'm not talking about being the best or being a raid. I'm just talking about just being able to do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. Shia LaBeouf it.
Shia LaBeouf it.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that, and you're saying because of that, the guides aren't necessary.
I don't think. I don't think they are needed. I don't think they are essential to successfully completing modern day raids.
You could realistically say that about.
Sorry, say that again. You cut out.
You could realistically say that about anything. So you could say that you don't need buff food, you don't need potions, you don't need flasks, you don't need keybinds, you don't need TeamSpeak, you don't need Discord.
Almost. That's a little bit, they're stretching it a little bit, because when you have...
How so? They're all aiding you in the raid.
No, so one is telling you exactly what's going to happen and exactly how you need to be. Another is increasing...
Not necessarily.
Yeah, the guide basically tells you every little thing. It tells you the exact amount of damage an attack is going to do. It tells you exactly where you can stand. It tells you exactly what's the best classes and things to take. Like, every little detail, it tells you. And I'll go to Wowhead and I can start pulling up the guide to Nyalotha right now and it'll start telling me. But when you have buff food and stuff like that, that basically just increases your chances. Like, basically that just, like, sometimes it's also necessary.
Reading the guides increases your chances, doesn't mean you're going to succeed. I could read the guide
Yeah, but
I'm going to go and kill her.
But giving food and whatever doesn't give you an exact insight to what's going to happen. It's different. So it's not all just under the window of chance. If you just want to generalize everything, then everything is under the same window, like absolutely everything. But we're not talking about generalizing.
Yeah, that's the problem. You're then putting it on a completely different pedestal when it's on the same pedestal. These are all add-ons, buff food, potions, flasks, guides. They are all used to aid you. Now, guides, yes, they're useful, but guess what? So is DBM. At the end of the day, they're all guiding you. But I can read a guide for something. It doesn't mean I'm going to be able to kill that boss. I might not have the relative skill to do that. The way you're suggesting it is that if I read a guide, all I need to do is follow that guide to the letter and I will win. That is not the case.
If everyone does in the raid, it is. Like, it
not even close. I'm sorry. What? How is that even possible? You've then got the RNG.
If people have...
Certain people are being targeted by certain things. You've got certain items. Yes, it might tell you, oh, it will do 3 bombs that will spawn on the ground and you need to avoid them. Doesn't tell you exactly where they're going to spawn. It doesn't tell you where they're going to stand. Doesn't tell you exactly when it's going to spawn. It might tell you they have this ability. Doesn't tell you exactly when it's going to happen. Case in point, Mythic Ashara during the progression during the World First raid, the beam cutter that spread through the middle of the room suddenly started spinning in the final phase. That wasn't called about, that wasn't put into any of the guides. What you're suggesting is that if all 20... So what you're suggesting, and let me get this right. What you're suggesting is that if Method knew everything about a Mythic raid before they went into it, and they all read the guide, they would clear it easily. Is that what you're suggesting?
Need to have a think.
It's
okay.
not
No, because I'm not. So I'm pushing one way, but I'm not pushing the other. Right. So I will again say, I don't think it's needed, but I don't say that if you do have it, it's a sure thing. I'm not going to say that. But
okay.
Again, I just think that it just makes it easier. I think it can be done without them. I think it's possible. I think it's very possible.
Okay.
I think it just makes it a hell of a lot easier. And like I said, I said this in my opening speech, it just makes it a hell of a lot easier. You know exactly down to a T what's going to happen, except for some very few random elements of this spawns on the floor, blah 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 blah. But you know exactly how much damage it's going to do. You know exactly what to do if you get caught by it. You know sometimes you're either just
Not
dead,
necessarily.
or you can move out. You know,
it doesn't tell you straight away exactly what you're going to do with it.
Mm.
Again, it doesn't tell you exactly what's going to happen. And again, you're also completely ignoring player skill. For example, I can turn around and tell you exactly what happens during the Commander Sivara encounter, the Mythic Commander Sivara encounter. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. I can guarantee you that probably 70% of the raids would not be able to... 70% of the raiding groups in WoW would not be able to do that one shot their first raid. Even though they know exactly what's going on, because they don't have the necessary skill to do it. It's the same with anything. Yes, DBM tells you exactly when an ability is going to happen. Does that necessarily mean that you can react to that ability in a proper way alongside everybody else in your raid? No, it doesn't. Potions, yes, you may have potions. They can help you. They're a massive help. Massive, massive power spike for pretty much every single class, with the possible exception of tanks, because lol, armor potions. However, does it necessarily mean that you have the correct skill to use the potion when it should be used, or identify when you shouldn't use a potion? No. So it kind of boils down to that, in that guides are there, and yes, guides are a massive help. I'm not denying that in any way, shape, or form. But in the current raiding scene, and as was pointed out by Grossbrock, it's got to a point now where it's almost becoming an arms race. The add-ons and WoW devs and guides, they're kind of in this arms race where the WoW devs make the encounters, they make the encounters harder, and therefore the add-ons have to be better, and it's a never-ending cycle.
I can't remember what we kind of came to the conclusion on that topic specifically. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's the same. Add-ons also to do spatial awareness of what's around. Yes, you might be able to say, okay, something's dropping here, I need to move over here. Does that necessarily mean that you're not then running into something else? No, it doesn't. So guides themselves, I understand where you're coming from in that everybody knows something when they go into the raid, but the way that these raids have been designed, the way that Blizzard have gone about it, it's almost necessary for you to read these guys if you want to, at the very least, have a competent raiding group. Now, one of the things with raiding is, in that, raiding realistically is, at this point, why? Okay, here's a better question. I'll word this in a different way in regards to why guides are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, why do you raid?
Me personally, I think a better question would be, why did I raid when I did? Because I don't really raid now.
Okay, yeah.
But when I did raid.
Okay, okay. Why, when you were raiding, for example, I watched you during your Magtheridon progression, which was hilarious because Magtheridon is so easy, but everyone seems to love Magtheridon, but he was an incredibly easy boss.
Click the cube.
Click the cube. Real difficult. Yeah, so what was your reasoning for progressing on Magtheridon? Why did you want to do that?
I mean, part of me wants to be involved in, like, kind of, the relevant... I mean, this is me. So, part of me wants to be involved in the relevant story. So, Magtheridon, big, well-known character. You won't get to see him unless you raid. Another, obviously, is the advancement of gear, progression, moving forward. And just, there's a lot of satisfaction about completing a raid with a bunch of friends. You just get a lot of satisfaction from it. A lot less than you used to back then. I don't know what it is, but it used to be so much more satisfying after you had to grind something for a while and then just knock it down. But that's just from my.
I think the difference is that obviously I don't think for the longest time you haven't been involved in any high-end raiding.
Yeah.
So obviously mythic and heroic stuff is slightly more difficult. But so with that in mind, if you all had the ability to read a guide to make that progression better for you, so you didn't spend 6 weeks just going, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how the hell I'm... Would you read a guide to take that frustration out of it, to get to that end level, or would you bang your head against it, refusing to read the guide?
I don't know. Because that's what we did, right? Back when in Burning Crusade, that's what we did. We just smacked our head against it. But that's what made it that much more satisfying when we finally got it. Because it whether you agree or not, it was difficult. It felt difficult all the time to try to just get it done. Depending on what it was, whether it be Vaj or Kalthas or Gruul or anything like that. So...
Yeah, there were definitely guides back then, so...
nothing like now. Yeah, nothing like that.
No, but that's because the encounters are not...
But that's what I'm saying. So, what I don't know.
And also, you were saying that the reason why it felt more spectacular because you banged your head against it rather than read the guides. It's a bit. It's if I say to myself, right, I'm going to go and shoot myself in the foot right before the starting whistle goes, and then cross the line, going, I'm so accomplished. Meanwhile, my foot is amputated.
I heard,
Oh
my god. You cut out at the wrong time because you said, if I just went, shot myself in the foot. So if I just went and shot myself in the foot.
Is it cutting out on Twitch as well, or is it cutting out on Discord? I don't know. But yeah, so if I went to go and run the London Marathon and I shot myself in the foot before the starting pistol, yes, I would potentially have achieved something, but I've handicapped myself for absolutely no reason.
Nah.
And it kind of that's what it boils down to for me.
Okay.
It's and I would say that guides now are becoming much more important because everything else is getting much more difficult to deal with. So I completely agree with Wowhead producing guides, and that kind of comes into something you mentioning guides and Wowhead and them not being necessary. Obviously, this happened last week. You went around last week. Neither was Dunkirk. He was stuck in a bus, kind of like how he's stuck now. I actually think that picture was taken live from the bus that he was stuck in.
I think Dunkirk. That's Dunkirk right now. Sorry, that's Dunkirk right now in the stuck in a bus.
Yeah.
That's his exactly face just sat in the front seat. Whether he's driving, whether he's stationary, that's him.
Yeah. When people come on to get tickets, he just turns and looks at them like that, and they're like, huh,
City
I won't
Centre,
bother.
please, mate.
Yeah, Wowhead obviously recently got into and I want to know your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Wowhead recently got into a bit of I don't want to say a hubbub controversy because it really wasn't, but we obviously had the issue with Pyromancer
Yes.
leaking the design of the jailer.
Mm-hmm.
This has been touched on last week when I did the solo show, but now I have somebody else who I can torture and kind of destroy their opinion on this. I don't know whether yours is the same as mine.
Okay.
He leaked, or he didn't leak. I do apologise. Pyromancer did not leak.
He forwarded.
So yes, it had already been leaked, and it had already been on Reddit and 4chan in a couple of places, but there was no big coverage of it. I believe a lot of people were keeping it very, very hush hush. He was the person to bring the concept art for the jailer into the public eye, into the greater community, so everyone could see it. And he very quickly became a figurehead for people's hate towards leaks such as this. I believe Taliesin and Evertil were very, very vocal against it. There were quite a few that were vocal against it. And again, Pyromancer did not leak this. He was not the cause of the leak.
Yeah.
However, he was the one that brought attention to it. And he had a bit of a Barney with Wowhead and Peculiar because he claimed that what he was doing was the exact same thing as what they were doing with their data mining, and that he shouldn't be considered a bad guy if they're considered a fantastic community resource.
Okay.
What are your feelings on that? Do you think as though somebody who reports on a leak, like Pyromancer did, is the same as data mining from the PTR? What are your thoughts on this? I want to know how you feel.
So I've heard about all of this now. I watched his follow-up video and I found out, everything about it. And my thoughts is, so he had a chat with Wowhead and other people. He had a chat with Wowhead.
Why did you say it like that?
I don't know, because I was in mid-thought. So he had a chat with Wowhead and he found out that Wowhead and other places have had this image for quite a while.
Yes.
But they chose not to release it. So they chose upon their own discretion to say, no, we're not releasing this. We're going to keep a hold of it. Now, if Wowhead, the biggest WoW news source out of them all, there's no argument it is. If they chose not to release it, then they've set the bar as the biggest news source, and they didn't. And then you go ahead and go, oh, well, it's a shame. It's like, not really. No, it's not. But there's two sides to this. So, firstly, like, did he? This bit I don't know.
Okay.
Did he forward this, and then go on about how he was right about a theory or something? Did he?
Yes. So he used it as he initially teased it by saying, "I have seen what the jailer looks like, and it appears as though all of my theories are correct." Then, when he released the tweet saying about it, he mentioned that he was right about something, and he almost used it as a self-promotion. I will see if I can find the tweet.
Okay, so
this may take me a while, but
that's okay.
Keep rolling with your thoughts.
Okay, so already that's already a mark against him for being just a bit of a big-headed dick. Like, if you go, oh, look, guys, look, let me show you proof how amazing and right I am. It's like, really? So there's one thing, right? Okay, the guy is good at his predictions. Don't get me wrong. He is really, really good at his predictions. This is assuming that he doesn't have some sort of weird inside link at Blizzard and he's not being fed information. Very unlikely, but there's always a possibility. But if he doesn't, he's very good at just knowing the lore and predicting things for them to come. So when he went to BlizzCon, when he watched the cinematic, when he was literally screaming in tears the fact that he was right about Shadowlands, that's fine, because that was a big reveal to everyone. When he actively went out of his way to put it in people's faces, go, look how right I am, he makes himself look really, really childish and kind of a dick. So that's the one side. I will not, let that one swing by. No, you're a dick for doing that, Pyro, and you probably already know at this point anyway. You know, we're past it. We're talking a little bit past it now. But that's I'm probably not the only person to say that. However, on the other side, unless he like from what I saw, he did put on, I think it was a video that he put out of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he did put on the video they put out of it that this whatever he was revealing was a spoiler. And he did give people forewarning to say this is a spoilery thing. You know, if you're going to be clicking this or you're going to be watching this, just let it be known. So the people who saw that still clicked it, still went through, and then got pissed by the end of it. That's on them.
I don't think it was so much that he was annoyed at that.
Well, I think some people were. Some people were spoiled because some people were spoiled. But some people would. Some people would just go, "Oh, Pyro video, don't read the title or anything." They just go through it and like, "Oh, I've just been spoiled." Some people like that. If that's the way they found out and that's why people are pissed off, which I'd imagine there are quite a few that might be because they just didn't pay attention. Then again, that's on them, right? They didn't pay attention to the warnings. If I see like the one thing I hate, right? I think it's one thing me and you did when it came to what was it? When we were trying to avoid Reckoning, I think it was.
Yeah.
We were trying to avoid all spoilers, any screenshots, any thumbnails. And we've done this with a few things, with shows, games, and whatever. And sometimes always someone on YouTube, you know they will put up the most spoilery screenshot of the one trailer, slam it up on YouTube, front page right there, and put in the title, so-and-so kills so-and-so. And you're like, wow. Cool, thanks, bro. Yeah. That's great.
It's so so he has deleted a lot of what he said.
Okay.
A lot of what he said has kind of been deleted.
Mm-hmm.
But he does kind of go back into it, saying, he spends a lot of time building it up. The fact that he mentions I may have just received some spicy information on the jailer. He then goes on to say, sometimes you just want to give the people what they want. The trouble is, I can't legitimately speculate on him, while I'm one of the only people who truly knows his appearance. If everyone knew, it'd be an even playing field. And then he releases the video a day after that. So he builds it up saying that he knows it and he knows what's going on, and he basically builds it to kind of use his own thing.
Yeah.
To build his own hype, really, and who he is. However, a lot of it has been deleted. He goes on to say that, to clarify, the person who took the picture publicly posted it on Twitter, and then others saved the picture and it's made its way to me via DMs on Twitter.
Yeah.
He says he wasn't sent the image directly from the person who took it.
Yeah.
And he won't name who originally posted it, but he does know them.
Okay.
He goes on, he then kind of gets a little bit angry, saying, I showed you a cool character. Do you understand his plot and motif? Do you understand where he comes from or what his true purpose is? He has chains and a robe and a lot of hair. That's all you know. And he kind of gets very, very defensive over that, saying that obviously he didn't really spoil anything. It's ridiculous. He says, I just want to make the final point that if someone came to me with an irrefutable real leak that detailed the main storyline and end result of expansion, I would not support such a leak. I didn't think that this was that extreme. I guess to some it was, and that's where I think that's the big issue, is that Pyromancer did it in a way that instead of basically doing what quote unquote, the quote unquote to turn around and be like, okay, I have received this. I have, I've received this. This is what it looks like. This is what my speculation is. He used it to build up his own image. He used it to build up his own audience, which immediately then strikes me as, it's a bit of a dishonest use. And like Rav says, Blizzard kept the look of the jailer a secret for a reason.
Yeah. So what I think he hasn't realized, I think he has realized now. What he didn't realize at the time is he is now in a position of responsibility, like Asmongold. So when Asmongold, we had, like, this has been said before, like,
because when you talk about responsibility, you think Asmongold.
responsibility. Okay, so responsibility and influence, I suppose, is a better word. So Asmongold, for example, is in a very big influential position. And remember, not too far back, when he says something about someone or blah blah blah, and then his community goes off and does something, and he said, "Not my problem." And we were like, yeah, kind of is. Yeah. Same with Pyro now. If Pyro basically then goes, oh, it's just a little spoiler, it's nothing big. No,
you just know what he looks like.
Yeah, you look at your numbers, look at the amount of people that follow you, look at your community. You can't go, it's not a big deal, guys. No, it is a big deal. This has been, it's literally like getting something and just putting it into like a much bigger gun and firing it so everybody can see, right? It's just like enhancing something that was small into a much bigger picture and going, it's not the biggest deal, only everyone can see it, you know. It's so I think he now has understood the position of influence that he has and how far his reach can go, and he has to be responsible with that. He has to be, you know, he has to take a good look at himself and go, you know, is me showing everyone that I'm right about something worth spoiling thousands of people and, you know, making them pissed? Like, because if his answer is yes, then I would say, I don't say this a lot, but if I say yes, then I'd say he's a bad person. I don't think Pyro is a bad person, but if he decided to follow that path and go, me being right in my career over people's, you know, things, then he's not part of the community, right? That's just him for himself, which I don't like.
How do you feel? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But in the end, I don't believe Pyro is a bad person. I don't think he'd do that. That is obviously just a, you know, what if thing. But yeah, continue.
How do you feel on his him comparing himself to Wowhead and what they do? Do you feel as though that is him taking it a step too far? Or do you feel as though he is justified in his?
I feel as though he is now proven himself that he would fail an application form to Wowhead, just by that alone, because he has already done something that Wowhead said they wouldn't, and when they told him,
no, I meant in relation to data mining from PTR.
Oh right, well, I mean, he's not.
Do you believe as though what? Do you believe as though what he did is the same?
No,
as Wowhead data mining from the PTR?
Because they get stuff off the PTR and they kind of channel it through, and it's models and different stuff like that. It's not like,
and also PTR public test realm.
Yes, public test realm. Yeah, so they get stuff off the public test realm. You can go to WoW and you can look at it if you want. I've never, so I'll put this out there, I've never gone to Wowhead and go, oh shit, I'm majorly spoiled by this thing I didn't want to know. Never. Like, at this point, maybe if I wanted to not know what N'Zoth looked like, I wouldn't have even played Hearthstone, because he's been on the card art for years, for example. But, like, you know, like, the likeliness of me doing the Nihilotha raid is low, due to my, like, lifestyle, my work.
Lack of skill.
Shut up. Just all that put together, like, it's extremely unlikely I'm going to be doing raiding, right? Yeah. So, with that in mind, I'm going, look, if I want to go and see that skybox of, like, N'Zoth and how huge he is, sure, I'm going to sure as shit look at that when it comes out on Wowhead, because that looks awesome. I might see it. I might see it when we're in Shadowlands and we go back to farm the raid, but seeing it when it's a bit more relevant, even if it is in that way, sure, that's different. When it's something that's within reach, like, for example, the day me and you waited for Reckoning before watching it together, that's different. Like, you know, avoid that shit completely, because I can log in, I can get there in like 10 minutes.
That was encrypted in the public test realm. That's very important to remember as well.
Which Reckoning?
Yes.
Okay.
That was encrypted on the PTR. That cinematic was not seen until it went live. And until people actively did.
Best decision. And
it was the best. So, you know, we have a history here of Blizzard locking stuff they don't want people to see on the PTR behind encrypted files. The same thing happened with Lich King. We knew that something was coming up in April 3 because there was encrypted conversations between Bolvar and, you know, various other people. So that kind of led credence to some of the theories about Shadowlands dealing with Arthas, but we didn't know exactly what. The difference is if you take something that has been, if someone has taken a picture of, a piece of concept art that, yes, may have changed, may not even be final. This thing was copyrighted in 2018, so it was nearly 2 years old. Then, you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, yes, it may be slightly different, but the person that was touring the Blizzard offices at that point, I can guarantee you, was signing an NDA.
Oh yeah, of course. Like
that NDA,
you signed that even before you step in before that door.
Yeah.
So wait, who
broke the NDA?
Who broke the NDA on what? Sorry,
whoever it was that took the original picture.
Oh right, yes, of course, yeah. And same goes with that whole security guard who took the picture of the Shadowlands map and whatever. Like, come on, man, when you can't even trust security, that's so ridiculous. I found I found that to be in such poor taste. Like, there's so many leaks,
and
about
we don't
Shadowlands.
even know as well. The worst part is we don't even, kind of whether or not this is all. Again, we don't know if this is all in regards to it being the final image. We know that Blizzard his appearance for a reason. We know that obviously people had a lot of thoughts. Like those guys that leaked Burning Crusade. I don't even know why. Whoever would do that, I don't know. It's
Little biscuit.
It's one of those where actually this is. But yeah, it's one of those where
thanks,
it brings
Lord
us into
Atlas.
brings us into a conversation where it then stems from this is something that has been a big part of quote unquote journalism for the long time. In at what point do you separate a leak from a proper journalistic look at something?
Yeah.
So
Wowhead has got it right.
Well.
I think Wowhead's got a good balance right now.
Yeah,
I can't name something they've done wrong in that field.
Well, they've recently said Wowhead will, and they pointed this out to Python, in that Wowhead will only release something that is considered a leak if it is being reported everywhere else. If you go back and look at their reports on Overwatch 2, Shadowlands, the Bolvar art, they only leaked those after it had reached mainstream media news. They only reported on those leaks after it had appeared on ESPN, which is a massive mainstream media news site, especially for Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that they're waiting until that point shows that they have a little bit of journalistic integrity.
Yes, it does.
And it then brings to the other conversation of, if you are a developer, and you could kind of see it in some of the stuff that Ian Hazzikostas and Jeff Kaplan said at BlizzCon, if you're a developer and you're working on something and you're waiting for that big reveal to really smack them hard with it, if it suddenly gets leaked days or weeks or however long before the announcement, you immediately lose a hell of a lot of traction. If you imagine us if we went into that BlizzCon knowing nothing, it would have been mind-blowing.
Oh yeah.
If we'd have gone in there without knowing anything, it would, that Overwatch cinematic would have been 10 times better.
Yeah.
Because we were, as soon as it comes on, oh, this is Overwatch 2. So yeah, it's a bigger conversation around, are leaks legitimate journalism, or does it stem from something slightly different? If you're realistically going, if a leak happens, should you report on that as a journalist because that's kind of your job, or should you wait and hold on? Should you depend on where the source is? If you know that someone's under an NDA, is it then ethical to report on that?
Depends on what your boss
says.
says.
Something official comes out. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Is that you can't quite tell exactly how you're going to react in that situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Wowhead does have some integrity because, they could be the first to always leak these things. It would be like, boom, here you go, here's Bolvar, boom, here you go, here's this, boom, here goes that. But they don't. Yeah. Like you said, they wait until it's gone on there. I think they're a big enough site that they don't have to be the first on that all the time. They're the first on many, many things. They don't have to be the first on, everything.
Well, you look at that when data mining happens when GTA. I know I love MMO Champions bits, fantastic, but at the same time, fantastic. It depends. If I know for a fact that I know there's a patch coming out, or if I see, on Twitter, a new patch is coming, then, or the new PTR is up for 8.3.
Yeah.
The first place I go, Wowhead.
Yeah.
Because, and it happened with when the 8.3 PTR first originally hit.
Yeah.
I was watching the Wowhead stream for a good 2 or 3 hours, just watching them constantly coming up with new things, watching them constantly introducing new stuff and going, oh, look what we found. Because it had been added to a public test realm.
Okay, so yeah, no, I agree. So in the end, we kind of veered off into journalism a bit, but
we tried so hard,
but
and we got so far.
Yeah, I think in the end, because of the intention of Pyro, as that's what we can know, because of his intention, I think it was wrong. Because again, like we say, just to further himself, it was wrong. And especially when he found out other people had it, but just held on to it for a while. He's already acknowledged this. That's already been done. There's going to be a bit of a mark against him about it, but people may, get over it, especially as time goes on, as long as he doesn't, keep messing up, which I don't think he will. So I think that's that.
That was a lesson learned.
Yes,
and it was. I think it was all a case of, again, Pyromancer. I don't think he did it from a bad place. I don't think he did it from a place of bad intent. It was more, to me, a place of naivety.
Yeah,
he was very naive in his handling with it. It was childish almost. In that, I got something you want to see.
And I learned this lesson. I learned this lesson a while ago. So before Legion came out, I got whiff of its name before it got released, and I learned this. And I've never done it again. And I was like, in my guildies, I was like, oh hey, I know what the next expansion's called. And they're like, oh yeah, what is it? I said it's called Legion. And the responses to me telling them was, is that it? And I'm like, that tells you a lot about what it is. And and they were like, is that it? And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, fine. So from that day on, why should I tell anyone anything? It's just it's not even worth.
Right. You heard it here first, folks. Farseer broke some form of NDA. So...
I didn't break no NDA. I had another
Who are your sources?
Chris Metzen.
Chris Metzen, okay.
Yeah. Man has a few drinks, what could I say? But anyway.
Except you well.
Yeah, it's true. But the Blizzard police have been notified.
The Blizzard police have been notified. They will be knocking at your doors very.
Pull me on this side.
Yeah, exactly. Just gets dragged out by a very orcish-looking hand. What?
It's just Taron Gregory. You're coming with me, with his thrall impression.
That was amazing.
By the way, it was incredible.
I'd like to point out that was amazing.
When you went back and watched it,
he did it I was there in the crowd when he appeared on there, and it was like, oh, okay, cool, interesting. And the first line he said, it was quite funny because the first line he said, you could legitimately see all of the crowd go, what just happened?
You're not Chris Metzen.
There was an audible gasp.
That's just America for you, isn't it? Really.
He nailed it. He genuinely. I was a little bit gutted that they didn't go back and do any of the Mist cinematics, because I would have loved to have seen Patrick Seitz there doing Garrosh.
Oh yeah, but he wasn't even there, was he?
No, he wasn't there. I mean, I'm not surprised, because obviously Garrosh doesn't really have anything to do with the story anymore. No. Even though coming into this next expansion, he may appear again. We don't know yet, because he died on alternate Draenor.
It was already alternate Draenor.
But we don't know if the Shadowlands is necessarily tied to just Azeroth.
It was confirmed that it's not. It was confirmed that Outland is also is linked to it. Now, alternate Draenor, we don't know. Possibly. Maybe it all just funnels into one, a bit like the Legion when all demons die. They all go to one nether,
I would imagine something like that place would kind of almost ignore time.
I'd imagine
it seems like the sort of place that would ignore time.
So they
kind of opens up a lot of cool, fun things.
Multiple Uthers, multiple characters, artists, all sorts.
We don't know. I just want Garrosh to be there because he's the real War Chief.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to feel about that.
He definitely is the real War Chief.
He had a good role. He had a good role to play.
15 Garroshes. That's what I want.
Oh my god.
For the true horde, for the true,
Yeah, exactly.
Just all
That's what I want. But I want them to. What I want them to do is I want them to form a giant mech, a Garrosh mech, flesh mech, if you will.
Oh my god.
Someone said that to me yesterday. They said, "Do you think when you have a woman who's pregnant,
Oh god, I don't like where this is going.
Does it basically make her a flesh mech because she's got a little child inside her?
No, because the child is not piloting her.
Doesn't necessarily need to be. Could be on autopilot.
No,
a golem is different.
Okay.
I want to see Vol'jin and have him say that what we saw in Zandalar wasn't his spirit and Sylvanas killed him. Okay. Whoa. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm interested to see where they go with Vol'jin's story because technically he hasn't crossed over yet.
No.
So are we going to kind of cross over with him and have part of the story almost, or are we going to potentially find out that, are we going to cross over with Vol'jin, get thrown into the Maw, and that is who we have to rescue? Maybe he gets stuck in the Maw.
Maybe. I mean,
maybe that could be where they go.
Do you know what I'm annoyed about though? Do you know that you reminded me? I hate these things where it's like, oh my god, we're in inescapable situations. 5 minutes later, oh, we escaped. Like, first there's been a jar of like Najdatar. It's like, oh, magic is preventing us from teleporting out. Here's a portal. Oh, we're in the Maw. And no one's ever escaped. We escaped. Like, stop saying it's inescapable and unbreakable.
But we don't know. Well, they never said it was inescapable. They said no one has ever escaped.
Well, then that would be
a slight difference.
Okay, but like that would give the impression it's inescapable, I suppose. But
yeah,
but we're special snowflake heroes. We're champions.
Well, we've been told that we know that we're not getting out of there unscathed.
Okay.
We know that something is happening. They've said that something is going to.
Okay.
What is going to be? I don't know.
Agra will have to sacrifice her firstborn.
There's part of me that wants. I would love it if we actually started.
If
we lose all our limbs, we just.
That'll be an interesting expansion. I'm joining your covenant. Just roll towards.
Yes, yeah. Welcome to the Earthworm Gym expansion. I would actually enjoy it in a weird, perverted way if we started an expansion with a couple of really big deaths. I think that would definitely be, that would be interesting to see, especially if it was someone that we weren't expecting. Like
Legion.
We've been teleported. Yeah, kind of.
Tyrion went, Varian went, Vol'jin went,
and nothing of value was lost.
Hey.
Okay, Vol'jin was cool.
I like Tyrion.
But yeah, I would love to, I would love to see that happen. I'd love to see that happen again. I would love to see, I don't know, Jaina getting killed. That would, because her arc's kind of come to an end now. But something like that, something big, something really.
She's now
shocking.
on the chopping block. She is no longer protected by plot. Her arc is over.
Yeah, she's no longer. Her arc is over. She's no longer protected by plot, and it's now time for her to potentially face the music.
I think Gen will die. I think Gen's going to finally die.
Gen, I don't. Gen still has kind of storyline to go along with Sylvanas, same with Tyrande.
His storyline is I want to kill Sylvanas always. Like that's his thing. Like that's not really a storyline. That's just a, I don't know.
But this leads into like his storyline is similar to Tyrande's, where it's okay. We've now. I've said to I can imagine him at a meeting with Anduin and the Council of the Three Hammers and all this sort of stuff, kind of going. I don't know how many times I need to tell you all that Sylvanas is an issue and she needs to be killed.
How many times do I need to tell you this?
Yeah, exactly. How many times? It's got to that point now where it's like he's kind of. I imagine, their storyline is vengeance, but it's almost like a case of okay, you guys are not listening to me.
Yeah.
We've been in this situation so many times. It's getting to a point now where I'm just going to go, sod it. I'm doing my own thing.
Well,
and that ties in quite neatly with Shadowlands in that the Sylvanas story is kind of.
do you think we're going to deal with
that.
Sylvanas in the first patch or second patch? She's not going to be the end of it. Do you think she's just like a small thing in a bigger thing?
I
think
don't
so.
know, because even now we don't know what her motivations are. We don't know what the we kind of don't know what the storyline is. We don't know why she's doing it. We don't know the pact that she made. We know that we know that she made a pact to unbalance the Shadowlands. We know that the Moor has been, the jailer or the arbiter, hasn't been doing the job.
Yeah.
For all we know, the arbiter could be the bad guy.
Possibly.
We don't know exactly how that's going to play out, and that's something that we have to I like Rav's idea. We're not going to kill Sylvana, that she's going to get murked out by the jailer. He's just going to get fed up with her, and he's just going to go, you know what?
I did see a screenshot of Sylvanas standing in front of the jailer, and the text going, Sylvanas has entered the Shadowlands, Sylvanas has left the Shadowlands, Sylvanas has entered Shadowlands, Sylvanas has left Shadowlands, and the jailer just says, stop. If you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah. I would love to have that. I feel as though we are now in a position where someone needs to be Worfed out. In that Worf was always shown as potentially being the strongest, but if they wanted to make a bad guy look strong, they just have him absolutely murk Worf. I want to see the same thing to happen to Sylvanas. We have seen how strong Sylvanas is. But now I would like her to be in a position where we turn around and we go, oh, she's really strong, and then just gets annihilated. Kind of like, you see it quite often in, you see it quite often in anime, like Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Yeah. If we're jumping ahead...
Cell was as strong as possible. He beats the piss out of Vegeta.
Yeah. If we're jumping ahead, though, what could this lead into? What next expansion could Shadowlands lead into?
Light expansion.
Light expansion. We're still going with this because I'm not too far gone from that theory. So, for example, from Battle for Azeroth. So from Legion into Battle for Azeroth, it goes from fighting Legion to back to fighting each other. Could have possibly saw it. Battle for Azeroth into Shadowlands. Didn't see that coming. Regardless, before all the leaks, I never thought, oh, that's an obvious route to take. That never even came to mind. So, Shadowlands into Play. I don't know. It's very early days. Light expansion.
Yeah. I honestly believe that we're going to get something to tie in with, and yeah, if I was to go my deal sort of thing is what Rav says. I love the idea of this whole Shadowlands thing being a fever dream set up by Unzoth, in that we thought we won when we lost. That would be my ideal scenario. And the next expansion, oh no, this is a Black Empire expansion. This is not released. This is everything released.
We'll have to see.
If that doesn't pan out, my other choice is an expansion that deals with the Army of the Light from the Mag'har scenario. Not necessarily going back to Draenor.
No, hope not.
But at least having something, because we've always seen, the forces of Arthas, the forces of the Old Gods, look, it's the forces of the Black Dragonfly. Oh no, it's the forces of the Mogu. It's always been very, very evil things. I would love to see something where it's like, okay, we have paladins, we have priests, we've met with the Naru, we've always used the light.
What are you talking about?
As a beacon of justice.
We fought the Scotland Crusade before.
Yeah, but it's okay. But we've always used the light as a beacon of justice, and it has always been presented as. And yes, we have fought against the Scarlet Crusade, and they've been slightly twisted, and they have. But I wouldn't call it a light. But it's not an army of the light. It's they're using the light for a completely different agenda. Whereas this is a proper fanatical zealot army of just people saying, if you do not believe in the light,
Yeah.
you will be bent and broken to serve the light, or you will die. There is no in between. And I would love to see that, because the beacon light has been used as a beacon of justice, hope. You know, Velen always mentions about the light. You've got, obviously, you know, the Ashbringer was considered a fantastic thing of the light, and I would really enjoy seeing that flipped on its head of going, yes, the light is good.
I wonder if Yrel
That is
would
what
come
it could
through
be.
and kill Valen. I wonder if she come through with her zealotry and be like, you know, it's like, Valen, it's you. It's good to see you, because I'm so sad about what happened to you way back when. Well, you made me the Exarch, and I'm come here to turn everyone towards the light. You're on board, aren't you? And Valen would be, no, that's not how this goes. She'd be like, well then, that sounds like heresy to me. And she'd literally, suddenly get C's voice and go, hey, and then like smash his face in with her mace.
We also know that there is an Exarch Garrosh. We know that there is
Exarch
a version of
Hellscream.
Garrosh that has... an Exarch Hellscream. It wasn't confirmed if it was Garrosh or not.
Yes.
We know that there is an Exarch Hellscream. And yeah, I think that opens up a lot of potential. I like the idea of potentially... we know it was Gramosh's son, so there's no female. I'd like to see them exploring, go whole hog on it, and explore the moon.
I wonder if, and this would be like a stretch though, but it could be in a hindsight thing. You never know it happened. Imagine if the Draenei actually found Garrosh, and you know brought him back. Like Garrosh wasn't dead, and they brought him back. So it is our Garrosh, but they're like, you will be redeemed in the light, Hellscream, blah blah blah, and actually is our Garrosh. Would be interesting.
That would be... I don't know whether I'd go for that, because there's a lot of baggage that comes with that, and it's like, it's just Kael'thas. I would like to see a proper indoctrinated, like a new so I would, if it looked exactly like Garrosh, and it basically was Garrosh, but an entirely... So it would be interesting to see, and again, this is kind of where that really, really nice position in using the light as a beacon of justice. If you then turn around and you introduce it's like, he looks like Garrosh. He is acting exactly the same as the other Garrosh. The only difference is, instead of turning around and saying, I am doing this as a future for the orcs, I'm doing this to protect the light. I'm doing this because light is right.
Light is right.
Light is right. That as an expansion, I think, would be a great amount of fun. It would give a lot of story to characters who do focus on the light. I would love, I would love it to be a really, really interesting thing. Use the light quite often, like Anduin. To all of a sudden see him have like a crisis of conscience and be like, oh, I use that. And that is being used to do what they're doing?
Can you imagine Garrosh swinging about Hellscream like a badass, but with the power of the light behind him as well, doing it? Oof. That's a dangerous...
Garrosh is a paladin.
That's a dangerous...
Garrosh with... Yeah, it's
a dangerous
Garrosh
concept.
with, like, a... Instead of having Gorehowl as an axe, he has a mace.
He can wield whatever he wants, to be fair.
It's Garrosh, he can wield whatever he wants, but having a light version of Gorehowl, or him, kind of, again, it could be very, very interesting to see that, because...
Interesting? It would be messed up. Imagine him beating the shit into canonical characters, or you, while preaching to you. Like, how weird would that be? Like...
But that's the weird part, is that you have someone turning around and saying, Ragnaros the Light Lord, Hearthstone, is turning around, and instead of having like a typical, and Grossbrot says, I just really someone to be the ultimate evil like Arthur. Concept of evil hasn't really been the same since him. And yes, I completely agree. I would love to see someone who is evil for evil's sake, instead of being just
morally grey, which I still don't buy, Ian. It's still not Even at the end of its expansion, I'm still not buying that morally grey. I think you were.
But yeah, I would love to see someone like Urel, someone like Exarch Hellscream, or even someone that character who is preaching to us about how the light will save you and everything, almost like we saw a glimpse of it during the Illidan cinematic
Zera.
Zera.
And
we saw a
Corallian as
glimpse
well.
of it there. Yeah, slightly different.
Well, he was willing to kill Illidan. That was
willing
a bit
to kill Illidan. But kind of the fact that she, Zera is turning around and saying, "You don't get a choice.
Yeah.
You don't get freedom. You will do what I tell you to do because of the light. The light has said this is what's going to happen." And and it was a case of it's very, very uncomfortable because you can see Illidan saying, you see him going, "No, this is not my."
Illidan did not consent.
Yeah, he did not consent. But still, it happened, and it happened in the name of the light, which is never good.
And Zera was like, "Shh, just let it happen, Illidan." He's like, "No!"
Exactly, yeah.
It was essentially that.
So that's what I would want to see. If my perfect scenario is that it's all old guard expansion coming in the next patch, in the next expansion, because Shadowlands was a dream put to us by N'Zoth.
Yeah.
Other side of it, I'd love to see a Lightforge expansion.
Okay. We'll see what Shadowlands brings. I'm very interested to see how it advances, see what happens with Sylvanas, everything about the Jailer. Every time Kex talks and cuts out, it's funny. I know, he always cuts out at the most comedic moments, so then it just comes...
I've looked into it so many times, I don't even know what's causing it.
It's so weird. It's only when we stream. It's so weird. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the show, guys. So this is the point where we say thank you very much for joining us. If you do like what we do here on Warcraft Radio, please follow us on all the social medias. So it's our YouTubes, we've got Discord, we've got all the good stuff, so you follow us there. And we have also got our main site at www.warcraftradio.com for all the information and cool stuff. The site looks beautiful now. Pride did an amazing job. Go check it out. It's awesome. Anything you want to say, Kex Man? Closing words.
Yes, obviously, if you have enjoyed it, make sure that you do Grow Sprott. Twitch Prime sub to a tier 1 sub. That is what I like to see, Grow Sprott. Thank you very much for that.
Hey.
Yes, thank you, obviously. If you are enjoying it, make sure you follow us so you know if you want to go live. And if you do want to support us by subscribing, every bit helps. It gives us the ability to do some fantastic stuff like BlizzCon and like we've got planned in the future. Speaking of the future, obviously 2020 is going to be a big year. We've got some interesting things coming up. Obviously, I don't want to talk about it too much.
No. But we got stuff coming up.
Talk about it too, but we have got stuff coming up.
We got some big stuff going on.
For the people that are in the Twitch chat and for the people that are listening on the podcast, all I'm going to say to you is...
what are you going to say?
December.
3rd of
That's
December.
all I'm going to say. 13th of December.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all I'm going to say.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to... 13th of December, I'm just going to...
Kexman has changed his 8.3 raid release date to the 30th of December. You heard it here first.
No. All I'm going to say...
You've said it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Just
Stop it. 13th of December. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'll say it one more time.
Okay, right. If that is all, guys, thank you for joining us. We're not quite sure. Has Atlas fixed his computer yet? Usually on Saturdays we will have the premiere, which has not happened yet, of Saturday Nights with Atlas. Whether his computer's working or not, he needs to get tech support around there because he's terribad. I'll send Dunkirk next time if it helps. And usually on Sundays you also have the Heart of Azeroth with Atlas and Mango, where they talk about all things World of Warcraft and all the good stuff there. And on Wednesdays we have the Warforged with Pride and Impervium, I believe. We talk about all things Warcraft 3, Warcraft 3 Reforged, and all the good stuff, and keeping up to date with all of those things there. If you like the sound of any of those things, please hit a follow on the channel so you don't miss a thing. Myself and Kexman, actually, I don't know if I'll be back next week. I think I'm working, but Kexman will definitely be back next week. You'll probably have Kexman and Dunkirk. I may be here, but for this week, guys, thank you for joining us, and have an awesome evening.
We love you. See you guys soon.